Okay, the mics are on.
Ready?
Okay.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Sunshine Law. Notice of time, date, and place has been furnished to the Bergen Record and the Ridgewood News. Notice has also been posted on the bulletin board of the Administration Building. Would the clerk kindly take the roll?
Mayor Giordano.
I'm here.
Mr. Brennick.
Here.
Mr. Martinello.
Here.
Mr. Raimondo.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Mrs. Weber. Here.
Everyone kindly stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us have a moment of silence for all Waldeck veterans and all veterans across our country who have given their ultimate sacrifice, some dying so that we could assemble like we are today and live in a free world. Would the clerk kindly say the prayer?
We thank you for everyone gathered here now. Thank you that you know each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust is in you completely. As we surrender ourselves in adoration, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts today. Come fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and praise. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Paul, if you want to start.
Absolutely. Good evening, fine councilmen and women of the Borough of Waldeck. Thank you for having me. Today I'm here to give a presentation on wireless communications tower on 19 Industrial Way, and an opportunity that presents itself for the borough to potentially have a substantial increase in revenue and control of the tower. I'm going to go through a slideshow. It's going to just go detail. It'll be self-explanatory as we go through it. So first of all, it's a 125-foot monopole, and you have 3 carriers currently on it. You have AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. And the reason this opportunity is presenting itself to the borough is because sometime around last year, Crown Castle, the current prime lessees, let's say, who had the prime lease with the tower that was assigned from AT&T, reached out to the borough about renewing the lease for 30 years or offering a one-time buyout, like a one-time lump sum easement buyout. And, we just reviewed the lease terms, and it turns out within the prime lease itself, there is a covenant that allows the borough to assume ownership of the tower after lease expiration. And it's kind of unfortunate for Crown, but, basically it's in the borough's probably, it's everyone to decide. It is likely in the borough's best interest to exercise this contract provision and do so. Okay, as we were saying, just a quick run through your tower inventory. This is the one we're mostly talking about today, and the prime lease expires on August 17th, 2025. It's about 6 months from now coming up. We have another tower over on, I think, 15 East Prospect Street, called the Mulch Pit site. Oh, no, this is not East Prospect. This one is a 150-foot tower. And this one is not of interest tonight. It's just a quick run through the inventory. And finally, around the block from here, you have a small tower by the fire department. And this one probably isn't going to generate much interest from communications carriers and so on. Just wanted to just basically, those are the 3 towers you have. And the one today is 19 Industrial Way, the DPW site. It has a little small cell from Verizon on it, and it's a little tower like one of those like AM radio towers you might see. Okay, current revenue from the tower, based upon the information provided, is $159,893 a year, and that revenue comes from a prime lease with Crown for $74,000 and 2 ground leases with T-Mobile and Verizon. So essentially, Crown is leasing the tower to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. They're leasing directly, and they're paying the borough a monthly amount, and that top amount of $74,388, that's the amount the borough is getting for the 3 tower leases, in effect. And the 2 ground leases, they're 3 tower leases and 1 ground lease, because AT&T's ground space is folded into the prime lease. So you have a prime lease for $74,000, And you have 2 ground leases. It looks like you negotiated or bid out for $36,000 for T-Mobile and $49,000 for Verizon. And there you have that. So not bad. And this is a bit more detail on the offer that Crown Castle came up with. I think it was like April of 2024. They actually offered $4,861 a month. Currently, that total amount comes out to $6,199 a month. They wanted to actually reduce the rent, which is probably not in the borough's best interest. They also offered a lump sum of $1.5 million, a single payment. See, you have to look into this, probably like a bidding process, a little more on the local end and building law. There's likely a bidding process. Not sure if it's probably not in the borough's best interest to give away perpetually the control of the tower for a lump sum, and it also may, have to go through certain New Jersey laws, such as the local public contracts law and local land and buildings law, such as Section 40A, subsection 12, subsection 13-1 or .1. They also offered a $1,650,000 perpetual easement they would give in 5 payments of $330,000 each. These are perpetual easements. They would have the ground and the tower in perpetuity, essentially selling the land, basically. So those are the Crown offers that triggered, well, do you want to do this? Like, what's in it for the borough? Like, shouldn't we look into this further? And in the review of the lease, we came across Section 10. If you look at the highlighted phrasing, that at the expiration or termination of the lease, the borough may, at its discretion, opt to retain the monopole at that location and release the tenant from the responsibility of removal of it. Now, back in 2004, when this lease was signed in the late 90s, there wasn't really this thought, they weren't considered they were going to have this much value to them. So this was kind of a throw-in to entice landlords at the time. And 20 years later, it's kind of coming back to visit, like a lot of tower companies, like Crown likely paid a substantial sum of money to AT&T to buy the tower. Now, if the borough exercises this contract, they would probably be out whatever the amount would be by not recouping their capital investment. So that is the provision there, and on August 17th, 2025, the borough has the liberty to exercise that provision and assume ownership. And that comes with a series of steps. Basically, we'll go into that in a little bit. The leases with the existing, with Crown, the subleases end, you'd have to rebid, release, and so on. So we'll touch on that a little later. Okay, basically, here's a little just market rent data we have, just from a sampling of about 8 locations, where you see the average amounts that the carriers are paying for ground space, tower space, and it's pretty good. Basically, some of these sites are like 91,000. Some are getting 80,000. In this area of northern New Jersey, Bergen County, the cell towers are just prime asset. They're very valuable infrastructure. So we had apologize. So we took a look at the, apologies. One more, there it is. Okay, now we're going to the thing. Here's the projection. So assuming the borough takes control of the tower, sorry about that little glitch. And let's say the borough takes control of the tower and bids out the elevations. Let's say you keep the ground leases in place. You could go the route of terminating the ground leases and doing it all together, and kind of coming up with 3 separate leases, or you could just leave the ground leases in place and bid out tower and ground space for the top elevation, because AT&T has no lease directly with the borough. So you'd be leasing tower and ground space for the top one, and for the other 2 elevations, you'd just be leasing tower space. Just an average amount. The top, probably, let's say 90,000. These are conservative amounts. You could probably go higher. So basically, you lease out the tower space, you bid it out, you set a rent threshold of maybe $5,500 a month, $6,000 a month for the 2 lower elevations, and something more for the top one because it's tower and ground space. So you assume they're going to probably stay on the tower. It's valuable. They're not going anywhere. They need the space. You have a lot of subscribers here for all these carriers, and again, it's a great market. So they're going to, as they have in similar towns who have exercised this provision, they're going to stay in place. They're going to bid on the elevations, and assuming your minimum thresholds are set like kind of fair, reasonable, but also getting as much as you can, your revenue would probably jump to somewhere in the $300,000 a year category. By exercising the Section 10 provision, you just get a $150,000 a year jump. Pretty much. There's very little that could stand in the way of that. It's strengths and opportunities and not all that much in the way of weaknesses and threats. And just Allendale and Franklin Lakes, they exercised the provision, had expiring prime leases and came away with substantial revenue increases. And that's just who's on the tower. $300,000 a year with just Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. Forgetting about Dish. We don't really know if Dish is going to have interest. Their cell network, they're kind of piggybacking on T-Mobile, and they're doing a standalone network of their own, but you're not really sure if they're going to come in. So they're a maybe. But you have this new communications technology that's looking to lease space all around Bergen County. And the reason is they're high-frequency traders. Basically, they do stock market stuff. And not that long ago, I couldn't pin down the exact date, the MAWA New York Stock Exchange data center was established. And that needs a direct line of communication with similar data centers in Carteret and Secaucus. And if you're in the line of sight or near the line of sight of the straight line between those two locations or those three locations, you have a valuable asset. And high-frequency traders, they pay very well, and they usually just ask to put 4 microwave dishes on the tower. So here's a little GIS, little snapshot. On the left, that red line, that is the line of sight between the MAWA and the Secaucus data center. And 19 Industrial Way site is right there. So it doesn't have to be an exact line of sight, but that's pretty close, which led to, not long ago, Gotham Communications reaching out to the borough to ask about bidding for space or leasing space on the tower. In all likelihood, they would want to lease space and then sublease it to a high-frequency trader for a markup, basically. I mean, I couldn't see any other business model that they would have, but we don't know exactly. We'll probably solicit more information from them and see what their business model is and what they're attempting to gain from bidding on leasing tower space. So there you have it. And you have the other two. See the Wyckoff Avenue one? That's a pretty nice tower, but it's far enough away, and I think it's too far. I don't think you'll get too much interest for that one. But the 19 Industrial Way one, so you're already getting $150,000 a year for the 3 carriers, with the potential for Dish and already some interest from high-frequency traders. It's unlikely that Gotham reached out of nowhere. They probably were contacted themselves and said, hey, what can you do with this tower here? It's looking pretty good. And usually offer anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 a month, and they're well above industry norms. And again, I mentioned the communication link between Secaucus and MAWA. In this case, the Carteret one's a bit too far west, the line of sight. And usually want 4 microwave dishes in a very small ground space, similar to Dish, like 5 by 7 feet for like 1 cabinet, a disconnect switch, and so on. And that is the summary of the presentation. Next steps, obviously something to think over and talk over, what's in the borough's best interest. But the preliminary steps early on would probably be to contact MD7, the Crown representative, and Gotham Communications, just to get more information from them. We've kind of been sticking with minimal communication, but for the borough, you may want to kind of figure out, like, what do they go? Maybe MD7, we know their initial offer, seeing if they're willing to offer more, just to get a sense of the market value of the tower, total market value, from the 3 carriers, the potential for Dish, high-frequency traders, and anything else that may come along in the coming years as new forms of communication expand. And then if you went that route, we continue to collect info. You might want to conduct a tower audit to confirm it's like the bolts and everything. It's really not that pricey. Make sure all the members and the structural stability is intact. And then sometime in June, you may want to inform Crown the decision not to renew, issue RFPs for the elevations, and then you market the site. And that's the presentation. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, of course,
Yeah, anyone have any
I
questions?
have one question.
lay it on me.
We purchased this from the Crown, right? That's who currently owns the tower?
No, you wouldn't pay a nickel. You'd be left there. You'd be getting it for free, essentially.
So
Yep.
if there are repairs and things that could break on this thing that then we would be responsible for,
Yes.
just like anything else?
It would be, those would be, I should have went a little more. There are a few, you have to get insurance on the tower.
Okay.
So there is some overhead or OpEx, whatever you would say.
Right.
If the tower audit, well, that's basically why you want to do a tower audit a little before you inform Crown, just to see, make sure there's not too much rust, there's nothing about to fail, just get a sense of the condition of the tower. And then just a couple of steps, and then exactly, anything that goes forward, there would be like a responsibility, but, kind of shared by the borough and the carriers, depending on the carrier's level of involvement on any issues.
Okay, thank you.
One question for me. I saw on your slide where you were listing out the potential lease income, you had 3 sites or 3 different carriers for ground. We can have 3 different carriers there on the ground, which you showed, them separately on there. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, basically, this particular lease has, AT&T was the original prime tenant on the tower. They leased the space, built the tower, and it was theirs. At some point, Crown bought AT&T out, and they probably subleased it back to them or had some sort of arrangement. So AT&T has tower space and ground space, but there's no ground lease with the borough for it. It was part of that original prime lease. Along comes T-Mobile and Verizon. They lease with Crown on the tower, and they lease with the borough on the ground. That's why you have those 2 separate borough ground leases. You can, if you decided to exercise the contract provision, you could either let them continue, or you could kind of terminate them and fold it all into a single rebidding process.
And generally, what are the lease lengths that we would sign with the new carriers going forward?
Oh, can you say that again?
If we then lease out to Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, what are the general lease lengths that we would be able to?
Oh,
get there?
usually 20 to 25 years is what you
Okay.
usually go for. That's 25 is what they want, but you go 20 if you want to, keep your options open, a shorter duration, that comes up so quick. Like 20 years goes like that. So if you go 20 years, you'll all of a sudden be able to revisit it, remarket it, increase the rent, just do whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, is that rent controlled, so it stays the same price throughout the entire lease, or can you bake into those leases annual increases?
Oh, yeah, usually do 3% escalators or CPI. Yeah, I'm gonna send a follow-up with more detail, I'll email it to everyone.
Okay.
I wanted to keep this one kind of general, but you are correct. It's 3% or annual CPI escalator.
Why don't we have our administrator reach out to the MD7 and you get, their input on everything?
Yeah, so just a quick follow-up too. Thank you for stepping in. Someone else was supposed to be doing this presentation, but he's caught in traffic on his way back up from DC. So kind of stepped in last minute, so appreciate that. But yeah, we've been in contact with MD7 previously, and we've talked with Peter from Hoplite about doing an audit, kind of no matter what. It's only a few $1,000s. I think he said it's probably worth it before we take any steps further. So we'll definitely follow up if there seems to be a consensus to at least, explore the option.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to explore it.
Yeah.
Everybody all right with exploring it?
Definitely.
100%? Yes.
Okay, very good.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Paul, you're up. Now, this is the same plans that went to the planning board, am I correct?
Sorry?
This is the same, what you're talking about is what went to the planning board?
Good night.
My understanding is tonight is to talk about redevelopment plans generally and potentially a comprehensive downtown redevelopment plan.
Okay, perfect.
So a bit different than the planning board
Okay.
discussion, although they got the long primer overview of the redevelopment process. I think I
Okay.
can give you the high points of that instead of going into that much detail.
Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Greigel from Phillips, Price, Greigel, Laney Hughes, the borough's planners for a number of years now. With regard to redevelopment, Waldwick in the past 3 years has taken some great steps. In my practice throughout northern and central New Jersey, the redevelopment process has been utilized by numerous municipalities to take advantage of assets such as their downtown areas and train stations, and also to reposition older obsolete sites, whether it's office complexes, strip malls, large malls, industrial buildings, et cetera, to turn them into more desirable land uses and also economic generators. In Waldwick, you have, starting in 2022, the process for 3 blocks, all are part of 3 blocks. The mayor and council back then, you authorized a study in that August of that year that was completed in 2023 for all of Block 114 and parts of 115 and 116. So that's the 3 blocks across from the train station on the east side. There's no plan yet for that area, but again, that is a designated area, and as we'll be hearing, and we've heard, there is certainly interest potentially from property owners and others to redevelop in that area. Taking the next step, you go across the street to Block 107, so that picks up everything from Franklin Turnpike to Harrison, between Prospect and Frederick. And so that Block 107 area was studied by the planning board, designated by the governing body, and there actually is a plan in place for half of that area. So it just begs the question at this point, given the fact that there's interest, that you have designated areas that do not have plans yet, as well as other things that are floating around out there, such as affordable housing mandates, and just generally speaking, as you're well aware, trying to increase tax revenue and redevelop fallow properties, underperforming properties, obsolete properties, whether it makes sense to take a bigger step and create a larger redevelopment plan for the whole area, or all or part of the area, instead of dealing with, as you have currently, one portion that was half of a block. So that's, the purpose of coming to speak with you this evening. And again, I'm here more in some ways to listen or answer questions, but just to offer some perspective with regard to that. The state law, the local redevelopment and housing law, does provide a lot of discretion. So I've written, and many people have, prepared redevelopment plans for everything from one particular small property, 5,000 square feet, up to, I once wrote a plan for an area that included 115 tax lots. There are some that cover large portions of downtowns or business districts. So there's no specified size you have to deal with. It really comes down to a matter of what you're trying to accomplish and what the preferences are. So in this case, one of the benefits of a larger scale redevelopment plan is to standardize certain things. So every redevelopment plan by state law needs to include some, if you will, boilerplate or background information dealing with existing zoning regulations and how the plan relates to your master plan, as well as a lot of other things that are standard that anytime you write a plan, you kind of put them in there. So in some ways, you can just take care of all that in one shot, but then also you have the ability to specialize in certain areas and have, whether it's a subzone or a sub-district, focus on one particular property because it's either closer to either a train station or on a transportation route or a busier street, and allow, say, greater density or height in one place versus another. That's one great thing about redevelopment, is you don't need to have a uniform density or height or anything. That said, you can. If you want to set the stage and say, okay, we have what we think is the cap for our municipality, you can utilize that and kind of put that in place. So those are the specifics that would need to be worked out. As far as any downsides to a larger plan, the only thing I can think of is that it just includes a lot more properties. So you can potentially have someone tie it up. You could also have issues if you're changing for one particular case. Sometimes you need to amend the whole plan. Again, maybe not, it's only a couple sentences in there or a regulation, but strictly speaking, it's an ordinance dealing with a larger area. So that's kind of the background with regard to this. I spoke with Craig earlier before, and that's kind of the direction I was given as to the overall overview. So, Mr. Basong, now if you have any other things that you were intending me to cover or wanted me to put out in the record at this point.
No, I think, basically, Paul's talking about the entire.
Thank you.
Paul's talking about the entire area that, the council's declared an area in need of redevelopment. So what has to happen now is the council's got to give Paul some direction and I some direction as to, what you'd like to see development-wise in that whole area. If we want to do a plan that covers, a general plan that covers that entire area so that developers that are looking to come in know what the council's looking for, so that they can come to you with some draft plans as to whether or not, that's what you're looking to put down there.
So what kind of process, so do we need a process to lay that out, or are you envisioning that we have just an open discussion here?
Well, I think I'm envisioning a bit more open, just within the parameters of the fact that you again have a plan. I have maps here showing the areas. I'm sure you're all familiar with them, but if you need any graphics to look at. But again, you have a plan that's adopted just in the past 6 months, so that could be a nice starting point and potentially expanded. So in terms of saving cost and time and energy, it almost would be taking, either you could take that and expand it. We could keep that just on Block 107, maybe focusing there, and then the other 3 blocks doing something different. Again, would probably align in terms of building materials and urban design and everything else to make, the overall vision for the area. But that's, at this point, it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with in terms of the scope and what area you would like to include within a plan.
Happy to throw out an idea to get the conversation started, if that would be helpful. Yeah? So does everyone want to expand the current plan to include all areas that we've designated areas that need a redevelopment, just to keep things like height and density consistent across the board? I know height is an issue here, so we probably don't want to go any higher in any building than anything we allowed in that first plan. If I had to read everyone's mind, that's probably accurate.
Yeah, I would certainly go with no higher.
No higher.
But I would certainly like to see one story.
Grade down, maybe have it grade down
I'm
as we
not a
get
fan of
closer.
50-foot buildings.
So maybe have it all grade down as we get closer to, say, Franklin, down to 3
Perhaps,
stories, yeah,
perhaps,
something like
yeah,
that.
Yeah. I also want to be clear, though, that if we go ahead and do something like create a larger plan, we're under no obligation, if I'm understanding correctly, to actually bring someone in and develop this property right now. Is that true?
Well, if somebody comes to you with a a plan that's compliant with what you put out there that you want to see, then, they can make that application to the planning board.
Okay,
It's just like regular zoning.
okay.
If you put a plan out there, yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, I think that's one of the points of, the benefit in some ways of going piecemeal is to say, well, you control each piece as it comes up. But again, given that's a relatively small area, my opinion, it makes sense to kind of look broader and then make sure that you have the parameters in place right up front so it's clear to anyone coming in, you don't have to go have a back and forth necessarily. Of course, in the future, like any ordinance, like any redevelopment plan, it can be amended. So if you say, it really makes sense to go higher or to go lower or to do something different in a different area, you can always amend the plan, create a different sub-district that focuses on, for example, if a property owner says we really have some constraints with regard to elevation or soils or some other factor, you can adjust for that as well. It's not intended to be one size fits all that you only, have one approach at the north and south ends, which are pretty different in terms of character.
Yeah, and in my opinion, we did half of 107, right? So it would be to set parameters on the rest of 107 there. The elephant in the room there is the Rite Aid property, right?
Yes.
So that's the big piece of property. We don't know what's going on with that company long-term and the landlord who owns that property. If we were going to do something, we should set parameters for what we want to see there in the future, whether that's open space or community centers or things like that that we all have kicked around.
Municipal parking.
See, that's the question. The question is, do you want to take this as individual blocks and have, say, you have 4 blocks we're talking about, one you've already done half of. So do you want to do 4 individual plans for what's left? Do you want to do one general plan for that whole area that you don't have somebody that's promoting? We have, I don't see Bruce here. He was going to come and present the Rocket property and the revisions, and we've been going back and forth with them, which is half of one of the other blocks. Or do you want to do a general plan for everything that's left? That's what we have to decide.
Can I ask a question? To be clear, we're talking about the front half of West Prospect to Franklin Turnpike to Frederick, which by right to the corner properties, correct? Which is the other half of the Harrison Ave.
I do have maps, actually. I did, in the interest of helping,
We're all talking about the same thing.
just so I'm clear, these are all in the public record, so it's clear from the redevelopment studies that are already prepared. I just took pages from each of them.
Yeah.
I'll go one
This
side.
is for the 3 lot, one of them, I'll speak on the mic.
You go for
To be self-explanatory.
2 separate ones?
Yes. There's, one of them shows the designated areas in blocks 114, so that's the Rocket property and some others, 115, 116, that's the study that was adopted in the area designated last year. And then the other one is just the block 107, just to show in an aerial. So you have the plan for Harrison, as you'll see on there, pretty much everything on the west side of there, the individual lots. So again, for the record, those come from each of those respective redevelopment studies for Block 107 and 114, 115, 116.
Hey, Paul, how easy is the amendment process if we wanted, let's say, as an example, we wanted to put a plan in place for the other half of 107, but we made it like our dream. One-story, municipal parking, lots of green space, right? And took that and just marketed the heck out of it to see what kind of response we got. And let's say after a year, we didn't get much response, and we said, okay, maybe that's just too restrictive, we have to change it a bit. What's the process like to change it?
It's relatively straightforward, as long as the technical part of it's straightforward, like changing numbers or things not adding a lot of different sections. It's the same as it would be for the adoption of a plan. So the process would be introduced on first reading like any ordinance, referred to the planning board for consistency review, back here for second reading and public hearing. So it's actually very straightforward, and it's not unheard of at all. I've seen redevelopment plans that have dozens and dozens of amendments in them. So it's definitely possible.
Sorry, no, I was just going to ask one quick question. In your experience, does having a redevelopment plan help us to maybe go out and have initial conversations with more developers because they know what the framework is?
I think so, just because in this case, it's not one single site. If it was you had one showcase property, I'm not going to use the example of the post office, but in some towns you have a property that's pretty clear and you say, we want you to tell us what you're going to do there. Here, you have a lot more to choose from. So unless it's a property owner, especially since also the three to the west, I believe, are non-condemnation versus 107 is condemnation, you'd have to have an interest in the property or make a deal anyway. So this way you can set a vision and parameters for the overall area.
Right. So we can be a little on the conservative side and then always edit it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way the redevelopment plan is written currently here, it's a fee if someone else comes in to do that, but if the borough's doing it yourselves, it's just a matter of, undertaking the cost to make the changes.
Okay.
So just to be clear, so 36, 26, part of 24 are the easement for PSE&G. So those are not buildable, correct?
Yeah, so we're looking at, just to make sure we're looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that are going, through those three different tax blocks.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, I think the easements there, in one case, like the borough actually owns one of these, at least.
Yeah, I think
And
36.
some are private, but there would be some restrictions, I believe, on,
What can be built on that?
I'd have to double check exactly what those are.
And that would be shown in the plan, where the
Yes.
easements are. 'Cause
Yes.
It's
Now,
unbuildable.
that actually reminded me, sorry to jump in, one thought from the open space presentation I recently made to the planning board that you already saw, there's the talk of a linear park through there. So an overall redevelopment plan could then put that on a map and give some teeth to that. So that literally just, as you asked that question, came to me as another benefit of a broader plan.
Okay.
Do we want to have like a group of 3 people put some ideas together and maybe submit them for conversation?
I think we should have the whole council do this, since it's a town project.
Do it right here?
I think we should think about it a little bit. I mean, we just got these
Yeah.
things.
I would like to, I just heard 2 really, in my opinion, really good ideas about what to use for 107. But I don't know which one I want.
Yeah.
You need time?
I kind of need a little time to
You don't want to
mull
rush into
over
this.
and get it through my skull. But, the idea about green and the idea about public parking, I thought are both great ideas. Which one do I want? I don't know yet.
Maybe we can do both.
But maybe, yeah, maybe you're right.
It's a big property.
If we don't have to move on this tonight, I'd really kind of like to take a little time to think about this.
Well, why don't we do it in this, everybody review it, look at it, and one by one, not as a group, please, send all your concerns to Steve. And Steve will explain it to you. He'll put all the data down, what everybody's discussing. And then we could probably come back on the 11th when we meet again and discuss this.
Do you want to send ideas to Steve?
Yeah, what you think?
Not just questions, just the ideas?
Ideas and questions.
Okay.
Because, sometimes your questions
And then
will
we
help
can
your
just review
idea.
them all. Yep, okay.
And just, Steve will just keep all the data. And then he'll come back with us, he'll speak with the attorney about it, and then he'll see if, your ideas are worth to do, sometimes it might be something that we can't do, and they'll be able to get back to you on it.
Yeah, I think the idea tonight was just to give you an overview of what your options are with Paul, because Paul's the one that's going to have to be drafting the redevelopment plan. So you could, just ideas to think about. You could separate out 107 and say you want to do a single plan for there, but then 114, 115, 116, you want to have one general plan for those 3 blocks for developers to look at, and then we can break it down into, okay, well, what are you looking at density-wise? What are you looking at height-wise? You do have a project that has been, you guys are considering on 114. So keep that in mind.
Right.
When you're thinking about those other things. I don't know where Bruce is. I just checked. He did email me that he had a diary for tonight, but, we'll have to reschedule his presentation for.
That's the one,
for
that's the Rocket Project.
That's true. That is true. He might be coming in at 7:30, so we might revisit this later. but-
If he shows up, then we'll just go back to it. We'll put it on the new
So-
business.
But that's all tonight was. It's not, nobody's looking for a decision tonight. It was to give you guys the general
Thought we
ideas
had to
as to
give one.
what to think about, what to send your ideas on, so that we can move forward one way or another.
Thank you.
Okay, very welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
So redevelopment, we'll wait and see what happens. Okay, the report of committees. My committee report, just a couple of items. Last night, meeting before, we talked about the Sean Fisher and the Fisher Foundation. Yesterday, his father called me up about 4:30, and asked me if I would be able to go to the high school and present a certificate of appreciation to Principal Carroll, who for the last 15 years was doing this screening on behalf of the Fisher Foundation. So I went there and we presented him on behalf of the mayor and council a certificate thanking him for the 15 years of continuing for health screening. He was saying that since they've been doing it since 15 years, 35 children were detected with a problem, and probably their lives were saved because of what's going on, which is very good. And the Fisher family is very happy and pleased that, their son's memory is still kept alive here in the borough, which is a lot, and it means a lot. Also, last Wednesday, I went to the famous Sewer Authority. I want to thank Mr. Mitchell for being there. We had a nice conversation. And I brought a bodyguard because I didn't know what to expect, so I brought Mark. If anybody on the council, he looks like a bodyguard. They were very courteous. They had their reorg meeting. They had 3 meetings that lasted, I think, about half an hour, 25 minutes. And what I did was I just explained to them what's going on in the borough. I explained to them about the smell. It's getting a little bit, it's worse than it was. I also talked to him about what we discussed when we went with the administrator and I with him, with the John Danubio. All of the other men were there and ladies were there at the meeting. I also let him realize that a petition by a resident was going around, and they were already aware of it. They're probably on our meeting tonight watching us. So he was very perceptive on what we were saying. He did say that probably starting in March, they're going to have men outside in the streets for about a month, detecting the smells. They're just, whatever we discussed with them on that Tuesday, the administrator and I, they are still continuing to go along with that process. He said that they're going to try the best they could to do what they have to do for us. And I said, we'll wait and see. Mr. Mitchell, did you get any other different take on what took place? Yeah. So we'll see. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I did tell them that I'd like to treat them as we treat the Board of Ed. When the Board of Ed has their meetings, the next day I speak with them. And when we have our meetings, they speak with me. So what we're going to do is, tomorrow, they will speak with me about this meeting. I did speak with John Danubio today, briefly, through his secretary, because he was off today. And we know what the plan is moving forward with them right now. Also, everybody knows about the Ramadan ceremony on Thursday. They've asked me to present some certificates to certain individuals that went above and beyond for this year's ceremony. I'll be talking to our famous clerk about the certificates we have to write up, and we'll be presenting it to them. Other than that, I have our mayor's meeting on Saturday, we will be talking about deer again. We're trying to see if the county will support anything that we want to do about deer, but it seems that they're not. So what we're going to do is we're bringing some other people in to talk about deer. And that's all I have to report right now. Financial and Administrative Committee, Mr. Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So this evening, we will be returning back the capital budget, and there's some small changes in the capital budget from a month ago when we first reviewed it. I think everyone has it in front of them. We'll also be touching on the water budget this evening for the first time. That is the capital budget for water, and that is essentially the capital budget for the different department that we have. Mr. Raimondo, on the issue that we brought up last meeting 2 weeks ago on the expenses that would or would not carry forward, we don't quite have that ready. I want to make sure it's perfect, so I believe everyone's going to email it to you when we have it, and we should have it before the next meeting, and then we can certainly discuss it for sure. But apologies, I know I usually like to deliver on things that I promise, but I think it was a tough couple weeks. But anyway, we'll get that done ASAP, and yeah, that's it for my report this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fire and Police Protection Committee, Mr. Brennick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. During the month of February, we answered 21 calls. Among them were CO alarms, a few false alarms, several mutual aid requests out of town, motor vehicle accidents on 17. It was essentially a regular month for the fire department. 2 officers, I'm happy to say, completed their fire instructor level 2 course, and we have 2 new members that are starting their Fire 1 training. So that's about all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Public Safety Committee, when Mrs. Saracola Drake comes, she'll make her report. Recreation and Health Committee, Mr. Montanello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few items for tonight, to be brief. Baseball registration is still open for children from pre-K through 8th grade. You can go to waldwickbaseball.sportengine.com to register. We're already over 350 kids, which is a great start. We'll probably be around 450 kids by the time we start activities. Our opening day is scheduled for April 26th. We can't wait to have the public come down and see all the great improvements that have been done in the off-season. It's really a great thing for the town. Our sponsors for teams and banners is open right now. A lot of our great business partners in the community have already sent in their donations. It's fantastic, and we look forward to seeing them all there on opening day. And also on April 10th, as I said last time, the golf outing has returned for 2025. It's going to be a great event. We have some good sponsors lined up and some great prizes. Also, just a reminder that on Friday, we have the Community Helper Story Time with Mr. Mayor. I think that's still on the schedule for 3:30.
The 28th, my people are coming.
Your people are coming. We have the Ramadan crescent lighting on February 27th. We have blood pressure screening on March 5th at 11:45 a.m. at the Waldwick Clinic on 22 Whites Lane. And also the BCUA Household Hazardous Waste on March 8th at 9 a.m. Great event to get rid of things in your garage. And also on April 1st, our pool registration opens. So we're looking forward to getting everybody signed up to enjoy the pool this year. And then there's a couple of congratulations. Our wrestling program for recreation had their annual district tournament, and we had several first-place winners that I'd like to congratulate here. Chase Casapoli, Anthony Casapoli, Declan Lynch, and Dominic Marquis, first-place winners. They'll move on to the regional tournament this coming weekend. And also some alumni of our recreation program in the high school won districts, which is a great thing for Waldwick in a small town. We had Gio Giardina win first place at 120 pounds, and Jake Abramson from Midland Park took first place at 175 pounds, and Ralph Warner took second place. So those 3 young men will move on to the district region tournament this weekend and hopefully earn their way to Atlantic City. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Remember when we were that size?
What's that?
Remember when we were that size?
A long time ago.
Public Works Committee, Mr. Raimondo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One item from the last meeting, I did forget to acknowledge several members of the DPW. If you all know, there was a traffic accident the night that we had the heavy ice situation on Route 17, a tractor trailer actually would have hit the bus stop again, but it wasn't there, so. But Steve Weber and Anthony Paris took the initiative, being first responders, to salt the road and not wait for and ensure the safety of all the first responders, the ambulance, the police department, and the fire apparatus, so that they walk into a safe situation versus a situation that could have been critical to them because the roads were very icy. So again, I'd like to thank them and Mike's team for taking the initiative to do that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mrs. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. We have some work coming up for the public safety building. We have some work that's going to be done on the fire suppression system. It's currently a dry system, and it will be converted over to a wet system. So there's quite a bit of work that has to be done to resolve that. Last Monday, I was able to stop by at the ambulance corps, because I never had a chance to stop by during one of their meetings to see their new bathrooms. They were kind enough to give me a tour of the facility, and we went over some issues that they had that they were looking for some resolution on. We had our water committee meeting. Do you want to talk about that, or Stephen talk about that?
Go ahead, I can help fill
Yeah, just a brief overview of that. So we had a water committee meeting last week. The resident was there, Mr. Goodell, and he spoke with H2M. It was a very good meeting. He told them the issues that he's been having, and it was nice to hear directly from him with the problems that he's been experiencing. And H2M came up with some ideas, and I'm hoping that he got some reassurance from hearing from them as well, what type of work we'll be doing downstream on that. We also had a Board of Ed safety meeting. I guess we could talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And there was some discussion with the Board of Ed about having police officers in the schools. So that'll be something that'll come up in our budget meeting as well, since there'll be a splitting of the priorities with the salaries. But we're still waiting for some more information on that from the Board of Ed and the police department. And that's all I have. Thank you.
In regards to that, at the Board of Ed meeting the other night, I forgot to mention it, but I'm glad you brought it up. They discussed the same thing that we just discussed, that this is just preliminary things. We have some ideas, they have some ideas. They initiated this talking session with us, so that we're a joint effort in taking care of the safety with the children. Our next meeting is next month.
12.
Right, and we will meet again. This time the police will be coming in, because this meeting we didn't have the police there, but all the information that we all came up with, our administrator gave it to our police department, and now they're going to take it and come up with a game plan, and then we will look into all this stuff. And right now, it's no need to get everybody so much concerned about it, because we are just in the process of thinking about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that's the extent of what the meeting was all about. Thank you. Our administrator.
Yeah, I'll save most of my comments for budget, but I will touch on the water committee meeting. I think we've discussed a lot, and I think we have a pretty good plan going forward. There's going to be a lot more coming out, I'd say, in the next couple of weeks with H2M. We had to go over some budgeting for a new study that we're going to get them started on. So we pretty much have that solidified. So we actually plan to award them that contract officially at the next meeting in March. But they are starting to prepare and mobilize to get some things going already to address the discoloration issue. So more to come on that very soon. Other than that, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question on that?
Yep.
Also, great work to the men for the water main breaks again this week.
Yeah.
So thank you again for the quick response on that and getting it taken care of, and the work on the Route 17. Are there any reports if that has kind of helped any of the other situations?
Yeah, so we discussed that. We kind of had our fingers crossed in a way to see if that was, once the Route 17 repair was completed. As of right now, we don't have any reports one way or another, if it's gotten worse or any better. But we are going to check in with the public member honor committee. We asked him during that meeting to kind of keep an eye on things and keep us posted. So we'll see. We are going to evaluate that over the next week or two to see if there's any positive updates. But yeah, I'd like to also thank the DPW crew. The Route 17 water main break was not an easy fix. It took a lot of preparation and planning, and it showed because it worked out really well. It was about 3 days of prep work and then the actual repair. So great job by them.
Steve, one of the other things, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Thank you. One of the other items that was very good with the meeting is Mr. Goodell did have quantifiable information, which he's actually monitoring when he replaces the filters. He's keeping the filters so that he has all the filters he's used to date, so they can, and it's very clear, he showed us the pictures, they are brown. Can't deny it. But he's getting around 18 days of service out of those filters, and traditionally they're 6 months, I think.
Yeah, I think it's about 6
So
months.
it's something that he's
Should be.
monitoring, and he came with an open mind, and he's really moving a good asset to the team because he has eyes on the ground. So I want to thank him for his input.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add something? Steve, one thing that actually is kind of interesting happening at my house is when there's a water main that breaks, it goes brown, but it's transient, right? It lasts for like a day or two, and then it goes back clear. Is there any way we can get word out to people to like report that too? Because I have to imagine all this data has got to be helpful in figuring out where this is coming from. I think if it goes away, people just feel like, if it resolved itself, and we never get that information. Like, I haven't reported it. It did when there was another water main break. It was brown for like a day, and then it went clear again, and we just didn't report it because it's laziness. I get
I think it would be great if Mr. Ritchie reports it because the more data we build, the better understanding.
And that was actually one of the things we talked about in the meeting. Tatiana had brought up too, like for people to even say, oh, my water it's fine, but my neighbor's having an issue. But the water main breaks, they usually, because you send the Nixle out if there's a break in the area, so then people kind of know that it's going to happen, and maybe they don't report it because there's a explanation for that.
Yeah, maybe put the link in. Is there a link in the Nixle?
No, and that's something we did discuss how to encourage people to report more. Like, even if you're not having a problem, we want to know that because it is sporadic on certain blocks we found. Like, one person's having a really bad issue, their neighbor right next door is having nothing. And so what we want to try and capture going forward is who has filters in their house, what type of filters. So we've kind of expanded the questions we're going to ask. So we're working on that submission form to update, add fields to capture all that info. We have 2 spreadsheets right now we're kind of working off of, so we're going to centralize that, put everything in one spot, and just ask additional questions.
And the people, residents having their own filters in the homes also adds to why the neighbor has it, but then the resident next door doesn't have it, and then the neighbor next door has it, because people have filters. And so they're not reporting it. So when you look at it on a map, it looks sporadic, but it is actually might be the whole street. But 3 or 4 of the residents have in-home filters, and they're not seeing the discoloration. So that is one of the other data points that we're going to start collecting too, is where people have a filter as well. Then that would explain why they're not seeing it, but their neighbor is.
Steve, just a comment from my other profession. As we're collecting this data, we should probably put a disclaimer or something about collecting personal information from people, that we're protecting it. It's secured or encrypted data, so that we make sure our residents know their data is safe with us.
I'm sure we could draft something with the borough attorney.
Okay, anybody else? All right. You're on, Kelly.
Did you want my report or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
You're on.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Melissa and I will be attending the Bergen County Election Officials Breakfast on Friday. There's a lot going on in Trenton right now with pending election bills that will affect this year's elections if they are passed. So this should be a pretty jam-packed meeting. I'll report on that at our next meeting. Just a reminder that April 16th is the deadline to change your party affiliation declaration forms, and those forms are available through our website. dog licensing continues to go smoothly, and residents are pleased with the ordinance changes that the council adopted, giving them, the residents, a little more flexibility to provide updated rabies, but still having their dog license. So we have, as a result of that, issued over 800 licenses to date. That is something that we have never done before. So our efforts seem to be working, and we thank you for that ordinance change. Lastly, just the alarm and landlord tenant registrations are just coming in now, fast and furious, so that's kind of where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Confidential assistant, Tatiana.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to officially welcome Lindsay Rulli, who joined our team in the DPW facility, another friendly voice for residents to communicate with when it comes to their garbage, their recycling, and all of the different services that the DPW provides throughout the year. We're really excited to have Lindsay on board. While she won't be interfacing with residents
That's good.
physically, she'll be at the DPW, she will be available by phone. We haven't made that transition yet. All those calls are still coming up to Borough Hall, but once we have her set up, we've thrown a lot at her in less than a week, but she is doing a great job. We're very happy to have her on board, and she's going to be a great fit with the DPW. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Borough Attorney, Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report this evening.
Okay, we're going to go back to Public Safety Committee, Ms. Sarah Cola-Drake.
Thank you. Sorry, I was at work. So nothing major since the last Wallback report. They hosted their joint training with AVAC Airway Management on 2/3. They hosted the EMT recertification, ABC refresher, and offered to members of AVAC and HVAC and MPAC. They also had 30 calls month to date and 5 general calls month to date. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body.
Be it resolved that the following resolutions herewith listed by consent, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Waldwick, are hereby passed and approved. 2025-85, approval of consent. 2025-86, approval of minutes, regular and budget meeting of February 11, 2005. Policy vote A, Village School Parents Association requests to hold a splash party at the Waldwick Pool on June 19th, June 9th, with June 10th as the, sorry about that, with June 10th as the rain date from 3:30 to 5:30, and requests lifeguards be present. B, Kevin Lackey requests to use Pavilion A on May 18th from 11 to dusk for a graduation party with alcoholic beverages being served. 2025-87, resolution requesting the NBCUA address the odor issue from the facility. 2025-88, resolution to support publishing legal notices on the official government websites. 2025-89, authorize execution of agreement with Phoenix Advisors for redevelopment financial advisors in the amount not to exceed $7,500. 2025-90, authorize amendment to the auto cab license for in-style car and limo. 2025-91, authorize Midland Park Continue Education Summer Camp to use the Waldwick Municipal Pool for their campers. 2025-92, authorize redemption tax sale certificate 19-00623 for 41 White Pond Road. 2025-93, authorized waiver of interest for 2024 added omitted tax bills. 2025-94, approval of appropriation transfers, and 2025-95, payment of vouchers.
Do you have a motion and a second to accept? Motion by Michelle, yes.
I would just like to, Resolution 2025-87, if we can have that pulled, just so we can look that over again, because the petition wasn't received, and also it doesn't have petition in the resolution anymore, so I'm a little confused.
Let's do the rest and we'll go back to that.
Yeah.
You have a motion and a second. Motion by Mark, second by, I guess, Michelle. Anyone have a question on everything but the one that was pulled? Nope. Okay, the only thing is Midland Park Continuing Education Summer Camp. Is that the one we did last year too?
Yes.
Same thing, everything's the same, everybody's all right with
we
that?
actually, we
You
made
vetted
some
it?
changes to
Okay.
our benefit. Tatiana, do you want to talk to it?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've just asked them is to pay ahead of time. We know that they're registering now for the summer, so it'd be helpful to us to have just a, payment ahead of time so we can invoice them. And then we have also made the recommendation that the students who are coming in and the campers have wristbands on, so they're easily identifiable by our staff.
And is there a limit of how many are coming, or do we know?
15 to 30 campers.
Yeah.
Good, perfect. All right,
That's the same.
if nothing changes.
No, it's just really us getting the money up front and, as Tatiana said,
Okay.
the.
Anyone else?
And those are some Waldwick kids too, right? Because
Correct.
Waldwick
They can
kids
be.
use
That
them in the
is-
park program.
Yes, they can be.
Yep.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Brennick?
Yes.
Ms. Eric Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Marnello?
Yes.
Mr. Raimondo?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
Do you want to do the traffic study first in the budget? Or do you want to go
We're
online?
going to go on 87.
We're going to do the traffic study first, then we'll work on the budget.
The resolution.
No, we
Oh,
have
I'm sorry,
number
you need the
87.
resolution. Go ahead.
You pulled 87, so.
Good.
So I know that there was talk about doing the petition, and we got something today that is signatures. It's like a spreadsheet, though, I'm not sure. But then the resolution didn't mention anything about petition again in it. So I know we asked to take the towns out of it, but we were going to leave the petition in, and now it's not in, so I didn't really know what direction we were going in.
So
No,
it
we said
was
we
my,
were taking
it was
it
my,
out.
We're taking it out.
Yeah,
No.
Yes.
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 absolutely.
We're taking the petition out?
yes.
Okay. So we're just, so it's just going to be that we're presenting it as the borough? I thought the whole thing was to be with the petition.
Well, I would love for that to be, and
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to discuss. So the petition, I started it, happy
Right.
to say, I was excited to do that. It is an online petition, so there's a link in the email that you have to click on. Mr. Laporta helped me, we have about 300 signatures already within the first 2 weeks. So I provided the signatures as well, just so everyone had a chance to see it. I think that's a great reception early on, but we really need help.
I agree.
I can't get
And
this
I
out to
think
enough
what we're
people.
doing with the sewer authority is a great start.
Yeah.
Is to have a conversation with them, because we weren't
I don't
having
think
any
it's enough.
conversation with them.
And have we validated that all the signatures that are included in that are all within?
Yeah, because I
the
see a lot
confines
from
the
out of
borough?
state on there.
Yeah, so
I think-
you will see, if you read, I sent the borough administrator an email and kind of explained. It has me listed as being in Linden. So it's where you are at the time of signing the petition.
So we have
I did
Montana?
not go through and look at every single name, no way.
Because when I look
No, I
through,
get that.
there are
Right.
140 people that don't live anywhere
Yeah,
near.
I just feel full, I guess that's why we pulled the petition out, because it's not quantifiable.
I didn't think the petition was submitted to me yet. I just think the
Yeah.
petition was circulated to let you all
Just to let you
know
all know.
that here's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So nothing's been formally submitted to the clerk, so
Okay.
it's still fluid. It was just an
Yes.
example of, here's what we got so far.
Right.
Exactly.
That's all that was for.
Okay.
Can't we just do a resolution and send it to them, and then and it's saying that a petition will follow? That'll cover a lot.
Because the petition was removed, but I don't remember saying that we were going to take the petition out.
You absolutely wanted the petition removed from the resolution.
It was a big argument.
Well, I know I said we wanted the petition first before we pushed the resolution through, because the resolution said petition in it.
Well, that's when we changed the resolution to say it
Okay.
wouldn't be dependent upon a petition being filed to file a resolution. So we had Craig go back and rewrite the resolution that would
To take it
remove
out.
the towns and remove the petition from it,
Okay.
so that we can submit this resolution, as the mayor was just saying, do that, and then we could also submit the petition.
Afterwards.
Later date, at a later date.
They're waiting for everything.
Yeah, I know they are.
So why don't we just go ahead with sending out the resolution, and then with a little thing saying that, could you
Yeah.
just say it's something that a petition will follow?
Yeah.
When it's completed, or no, or just put the
We
resolution?
just don't want that.
I don't want to confuse the issues. The petition is started by a resident.
Absolutely,
Right.
The question, there's two questions. One was the resolution without including a petition, and
Yes.
two was whether this council was going to support
A resolution.
the submittal of a petition to
With the-
the sewer authority. So they're two separate and distinct issues. You can do this resolution as drafted and send it down there and not say anything about a future petition. Or at a later time, you could say, review the petition
Right.
and say you support the petition.
Okay.
Or the resident can submit the petition themselves.
Right.
Okay,
It's whether you want to support.
okay. Do I have a motion to accept 2025-88? Motion by
Yes.
Michelle, second by 97, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I got no glasses on.
Motion by who?
A motion by Michelle, second by Mark. Anyone have a question? I guess everybody answered everything or spoke. Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Brannick?
Yes.
Ms. Sarah Cole-Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Martinello?
Yes.
Mr. Raimondo?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
Okay. You want to go talk about the safety first? Yeah, we're going to go a little switching around. Instead of doing the budget first, we'll save that for last. We're going to do the traffic study.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'll kind of cue this up and everyone jump in. So we've been talking a lot about traffic safety study, the study that was done in 2023. Recently, last week, we had the opportunity, the Fire and Police Protection Committee sat down with PD, the chief and 2 lieutenants to discuss that study in greater detail and come up with kind of a set list of recommendations. So we did that. And I think everyone's caught up at this point. So Lieutenant Seifer kind of put that all together for us, a detailed list. I don't know if anyone, I could go through that list right now, but just some follow-up is really we're focusing on signage, so updating signage, possibly adding one 4-way stop. That's all that's outlined so far, but really looking at upgrading all of our signage, specifically stop signs. So we're looking to upgrade all the stop signs, and we're talking about this area, the grid area over here, focusing there first, which was outlined in the study. So we're looking at 8 LED stop signs and 6 light-up LED pedestrian crossing signs, and then we're also looking to add 2 more of the blinking crosswalks this year in this budget. So, right now in the Capitol, with those things outlined, we did bump that up from about $25,000 in capital to about $65,000 in capital now, just to really focus on signage. Kind of that's like the first phase of implementation, along with painted crosswalks. So I drove around with Lieutenant Seifert earlier this week, and we looked at all the intersections, and our crosswalks are sporadic, I'd say, at best. They don't totally make sense, so we want to get some high-impact ladder striping at all those crosswalks. That is an effective way of slowing down traffic, especially coming down, streets like Nordham Center and Ridge, so we think that would be pretty effective. And we did discuss some traffic safety around the schools as well, which I think we'll go into greater detail at another time once we kind of zero in on those decisions a little bit more. The last piece we're waiting on is pricing on additional speed feedback signs. So those are those boxes you see on poles that tell you how fast you're going when you approach. They collect data too, which is very helpful for our police department. So we'll be able to move those around town and use those effectively to, focus on targeted areas of enforcement and things like that. So that's where we're headed with that. Thank you, all the committee members, and definitely PD for their input on this. I don't know if anyone has anything
Well,
else.
just so everyone knows, this traffic study committee and the safety committee are 2 different committees. Safety committee was established by the Board of Ed, and the traffic study committee was something that was already done by us. So there's 2 separate committees. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the items that Lieutenant Seifert mentioned was once they installed the LED stop signs, the 4-way stop on Hopper and West Prospect. At first, they didn't think it was going to be a vast improvement, but I think the way he communicated, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, said I think they went down almost 100%, 50%. So the amount of incidents over there have drastically been reduced. So they seem to be a very good deterrent to slow people down, and that's one of the initiatives that they're looking for over by Bergen or Summit.
You're in charge of the Public Safety Committee. How do you feel about all this?
Well, I was going to say that one of the focus points that was brought out clearly, I think, in the meeting that we had with the police department was in and around Bergen. It seems to be, actually, Google Maps has Bergen as a through street to go from the center of Waldwood to 17. So that's one of the focal points that was brought up in the conversation. They know it, they're aware of it, and I got to say that I think that this is a great move forward. and I think we're going to see very positive results in a relatively short period of time. So
I
I'm
know.
excited
What
about
are we
this.
doing at the schools?
I'm
This is
sorry?
What are we doing at the schools?
Yeah,
I
with,
mean,
with
the-
respect
the-
to the
the-
traffic?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty well laid out here, what needs to be done at the schools.
There was a recommendation, so I apologize, I didn't get a chance to meet the meeting. I was in San Diego, I don't apologize for that. But, yeah, I think, are we keeping it general? I thought we were keeping it general tonight, but there was a recommendation to make one of the streets one-way, at certain periods of time.
That was in the safety meeting. They're talking about that at the safety meeting.
Yeah, I
We're talking
think-
about that,
That was in the Board of Ed safety
the
meeting,
Board of
right?
Ed safety
Yeah,
meeting.
that was also in the
For
traffic
traffic
study.
and-
Yeah,
For
we're
traffic.
looking into that with the Board of Ed, we're looking into changing Summit Avenue, and then we're also looking into, there was a petition signed by residents, we're looking into maybe adding a couple of crossing guards.
Crossing guard,
So
okay.
that's another thing that they're working on. And that, as I said before, will go to the police for them to review everything. Because as Lieutenant Seifert said, if we need crossing guards, we will get crossing guards.
There was also a comment about sidewalks on Nordum and/or Center, being that they don't have any sidewalks up and down that entire road, and I think that would be fantastic.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it was in his email too, from this afternoon.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just to touch on that point. That was brought up because there's a lot of streets throughout Waldwick that do not have sidewalks, so obviously that is a pedestrian safety concern. And that's why some of the crosswalks are sporadic, because you don't have a crosswalk to nowhere. So that's some of the reasoning behind that. So we're trying to pick out where we can add them and where it makes sense. And maybe that is a discussion for some of our ADAs, ramp upgrades, is maybe we add some of those corners in at least, and potentially full-blown sidewalks, but at least, we could kind of start with the ramps and fill in the gaps from there.
What's involved with doing the sidewalks? I know we did the one on Hopper, but I think that was the Board of Ed that did that for the corner.
We did.
We did that, you did that? What was
The Board of Ed is going to be working on, they're still in the process of putting in we stopped at Hopper, they're going to
Oh,
go,
they had to continue.
they're going to go on the side of where the field is. They're working on that.
Okay.
So, in our next meeting, what we'll do is just bring it up with the police. They're very, they're listening and very in tune to what we need and what the residents need. Anybody else with traffic?
Could I just add one more thing? Is there an appetite to do a similar study on other parts of town? I think that this was a great, initiated a great discussion, had some great ideas, and I think there are other areas of town that we could probably address this with too.
Why don't we just do this one first, and then we'll go to another one? Because too much on the plate's going to get everybody all
Well, it's a third
confused.
party, right? I mean, we got a budget for it, and then they start, and
Well,
it's going to take a year anyway.
I think we should get this done first. Let the police work on this first, and then we'll work on everything else. Anyone else?
So that's final? No
That's my
discussion on
final. I
that?
don't care what anybody else does. What do you want?
I can walk and chew gum at the same time,
So could I.
so
And I did.
I'd be more than happy to have that traffic study expanded to other areas.
Why don't we speak to the police about this, see what they want to do? I mean, because they're the ones that have to do all the legwork for us.
Yeah, I could do that. I'll follow up with them, get some
Sure.
recommendations. I know this grid area was the priority,
Yeah.
so we'll see where they want to jump to next.
Good. Okay, 2025 municipal budget discussion. Steve, you could do that, so you could start, and everybody will chime in.
All right, so tonight we're going to circle back to capital. You should have the sheets in front of you. There's two sheets, just the general capital, and then the second sheet is the water capital. So we could kind of jump right in. I'll just note, since the last meeting, there aren't many significant changes. We added some of the fire department items that weren't previously discussed and changed around a couple items. So if you want, we'll just start under admin. I'll note the things that have been changed. The big one is IT equipment. So we were at, $25,000 for that. Based on discussions with our IT company today, we're actually bumping that up to $70,000. And one of the main reasons for that is both of our servers that control PD and the borough need to be replaced this year. They are end of life. Those are about $15,000 each, so there's $30,000 right there just with the 2 servers. And then the additional $40,000 would be to replace 15 workstations. So that's about a third of our workstations. We have about 45 or so total. So if we did 15 this year, probably another 15 next year, and kind of implement it that way. That's what we're looking at.
Steve, are they quoting anything on options instead of replacing servers, hosting it in the cloud, Azure, AWS?
That is not what they're proposing, but we're scheduled to have a follow-up meeting with them soon to kind of zero in on that a little bit more and see what the options are.
Because it takes that off of future, right? You don't have to worry about upgrading servers anymore. It's done by huge companies. They'll constantly keep you upgraded. All you have to do is pay your annual operating costs, which takes that kind of out of the capital for you going forward. So I'm happy to help with that too, if I can participate in any discussion on that.
Yeah, we'll get their opinion on that. I know I've talked to a bunch of different IT people, and they seem to go back and forth. Some like the physical servers because it's actually locked up in a physical space. In the police department, it's secure.
Some like it because they like to get more billable hours.
That is also an option, but so we'll get all the options and lay it out. We do have that meeting followed up with them, but I want to include it in there now because that is what the recommendation is. Going down, not much else has changed under admin. The next significant bump up, which we just discussed really, is the traffic devices. So we did increase that to $70,000 for that. So I don't know if there's any further comment on that. I think that 70 will cover everything we've discussed and the additional speed feedback signs, maybe with a little bit extra too. So I think we'd be able to really increase our signage around town with that. And that's not including the 2 blinking crosswalks we've already purchased that are hopefully going to be installed actually starting in the next 2 weeks once the weather's kind of broke for us.
But does that money include anything for the schools?
Yes, actually it will. The one plant near Traphagen, there's some equipment that's included. Right. We'll skip down and just jump right into fire. So this is all pretty new. The regular items, the turnout gear and PPE, that's a standard $25,000. That's what we did last year. Some years we apply for AFG grant and offset that, which is great. We just want to keep that in there just in case we don't receive any grants for that. And just so you know, a full set of PPE, so that includes the helmet, the hood, goggles, jacket, pants, boots, is about $6,000 for one set. So keeping that regular, obviously the gear gets beat up. You get new members, you want to have enough gear for everybody. So I would recommend keeping that line in there. The next one you'll see is the Knox box. So those are the boxes mounted on every business throughout town. It allows first responder access into the buildings if they're there off hours. So this is for $30,000. I guess you might be able to provide a little additional background.
Well, what they're looking to do is, we are, as everybody else, we're going digital. So what this is going to allow us to do is, on the way to the call, we can activate that box ahead of time. When we get there, there is no wasted time. We just go right in and do what we have to do. It's an ongoing process. It is expensive like everything else, but I believe it's the right way to go. It saves time. That's what we got to do.
It will also enable us to track who goes in and out. It tracks where the keys are, who has access, everything. So it's just a much more secure system. The line below was actually, this is really just a relabel. It was kind of a catch-all, so we relabeled it fire suppression equipment. That's been a standard 8500. It was hoses and appliances, so we just kind of wanted to, recategorize that, I guess, to be more general. It's basically for all firefighting equipment. Next one down is technology upgrade. So this is for the iPads that are in all the rigs. I believe pull up all the mapping information on the way where hydrant locations, things like that on the way to a call.
Everything at your fingertips, but before you get there. even how to get there if you need to.
Yeah, so super helpful, can save a lot of time if you know there's a hydrant, you know, if there's not a hydrant close and there's one, you know,
Yeah,
100 feet.
in my opinion, these are not, these are not wants, these are needs.
Yeah.
This has got to happen.
And it allows for the reporting to the NIFRs immediately, so that nothing's lost. It's done on the scene, and then when they get back into the house, it uploads into the system, so the NIFRs reports are complete.
And then the other two are bumped to future years. The next one up would be Power DMS. So this is a system, the police use the same system. It's for policy management. Police probably use it a lot more extensively. They have a lot more policies and procedures they have to sign off on, but it allows for training, tracking, and everything, and just implementing and sending out policies easier.
Can't use the same licensing?
No, unfortunately.
Oh.
We've gone down that road. Just separate systems, they have their own account set up that way. We could try and discuss that with them in greater and see what we could work out with them, but I know this is
With the
about...
vendor, or is that-
With the vendor, yeah.
Thank you.
They just want their money.
Because police is really a totally different animal. They keep that completely separate, so. Does anyone have any questions on the fire, or do you want to add anything?
I'm good to go. I'm
Okay.
ready to answer questions. If not, move on.
All right. Does anyone have any questions before we jump over to water? Because everything else we pretty much talked about the last time. Not much has changed. If you look with the addition of fire and the bump in those two other lines, IT and traffic, we were aiming for 2 million. We're at 2,019,000. So I think we're pretty close, and the added expenses seem justified, but welcome any feedback.
How confident do you feel in the grant numbers that you're quoting in there for the net indebtedness number?
The grant numbers in here are solid. Actually expecting, what it doesn't include is we've been diving in on another grant that was applied for at the end of '24. So that is not included yet. I think that's around 100,000. So that would go towards the Lions Park playground improvements also. So if anything, it would drop down a little bit. And we actually did, one thing to backtrack a little, under PD, which helped balance out the number, is we had an update on the vehicle trust account. And so that patrol vehicle upfit was originally in for about 85,200. We actually dropped that down to 20,000. We have about 55 to 60,000 in the vehicle trust that we'll use towards that purchase. So we were able to drop that line down.
And the HVAC at the Pistol Range, we're feeling better about that number now?
We're feeling good with that number, yeah.
Steve, I have a question related to the grants. I know we were talking about hiring a third-party grant company.
Yep.
What's the status with that?
So that's going to be included in the operating. So we included that in the professional services line under the
Okay.
admin budget. So that'll be
Okay.
an additional 30,000, you'll see, and we'll bring that up at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. So we could jump over to water now, this is all new. So if we want to just go down and kind of explain, so that infrastructure improvement line, that first one, typically we've been doing 125,000 every year. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement that that's probably pretty low for all the things we're facing right now, so we doubled that this year. We could probably do even more, but I will note that that's just a general infrastructure. We use that for a lot of different equipment and repairs. What we don't have outlined here is kind of the unknown that we are working on with the Water Quality Committee and H2M. So as we get further along with that, and they really get in and we let them loose on the system, we'll be able to identify some more, detailed capital costs. So, if things like that come up for this year, we would just have to, maybe do an emergency or a separate bond ordinance for those specific projects. But for right now, this is what we have knowledge of.
Feel good about the number? Doubling?
I would double that number even.
Yeah, I mean, I just... Yeah, You just know it's going to come.
Yeah, I think as a starting point, this seems fair. You know, we are doubling it. We know we could get a lot done with that, so.
Large list on here, you know, obviously we need to do all these things. Are we sure we can accomplish all of these this year, budgeting for, you know, 13 line items there?
Yeah, I think so. I feel pretty confident. There's no, I wouldn't say there's a lot of wants in here. These are all pretty solid needs. You know, maybe a little flexibility, but I think they all make sense for the most part. We tried to keep out anything we really didn't need, just knowing what we're facing, so.
We have a tapping machine now?
So we have a tapping machine. It is, I was told it's about from 1979,
Okay.
1970s. Not that it doesn't
This
work.
thing's behind a truck.
Right, but I've heard it is old, it doesn't get a lot of use, and
Okay.
parts are an issue if it does break or anything.
Okay.
We have line 5 in there was a leak detection monthly survey.
Yes.
So we have that in FY '25. Is that something that's going to continue out?
That's-
Is that an operating line? Is that a capital line?
So that's kind of what Mike and I just discussed today, was this was kind of the initial outset, but if it works out well, so it's almost like we want to try this, get it in, see how it goes. If it works out well, this would be shifted to operating.
Yeah. Just for an example, they did a couple leak surveys over on Waldwick, a few streets over there. It's about $4,000.
Yeah,
And that's not
it adds up
that's
quick.
conservative. The guy really cuts us a break. He's a quarter years.
Yeah, and one thing they noted, at least the one company, you know, we would have to get different quotes and everything, but the equipment, the nodes that go in, as if they go down or break, they would be replaced, you know, with no additional charge. So this would be kind of the all-in
The
cost for
loggers?
that. Yeah.
That's a great system. Loggers.
So again, just additional data collection, helping us monitor the system constantly, identify breaks early. To go back up to the well 3 rehab, so this was kind of a new one for me. So I guess when wells are drilled, they kind of frack it in a way, and please correct me if I'm misspeaking, but you know, they break it, right? So you get the water in. What happens over time is those cracks fill in with dirt, sediment, and it clogs it up.
Yeah.
So this is a refracking, for lack of a better term. The option we're looking at with the engineer is actually a chemical fracking instead of like a physical. They actually, you know, shock it.
Which one's well 3?
Well 3 is the tennis courts,
Okay. Not the one that there
the
was
covered tennis courts.
a little bit of an issue with.
Yeah, we've had some pump issues,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
This issue?
We think so. So that one
Yeah.
was sucking dry, and we think it was partially because of this
Yeah.
issue.
Okay.
The safety equipment is pretty standard, you know, some shoring and just additional safety equipment for our guys. We don't have that right now, so I think it'd be helpful. You know, the Route 17 repair, we needed the shoring. Luckily, we had a subcontractor on that job for other reasons too, and they had all that proper equipment. But it'd be nice to have some of this in-house.
Yeah.
No, we want to keep our guys safe.
Yeah, and the steel plating, obviously. Going down to the well 5 electrical upgrades, so that's a big number there, 200,000. So originally, this was included in the water treatment project scope, but it was pulled out to try and drop the, you know, the price down, the cost down, so we could actually get it awarded. So that was pulled out, so that's why this request is back in. That well building does need just a complete overhaul of the electrical system. So, you know, new service, new panel, to accommodate, you know, the hookup for the generator also is included in that. All new wiring, conduits, you know, the whole deal. Going down a couple quick items, the hydraulic breaker attachment for the backhoe, just to allow easier digging, you know, for DPW, and same with the grading bucket for the excavator. The hydrant and stock parts, that's actually a little high this year because we weren't able to do it just with the budget last year. Our operating budget was pretty tight, so we didn't get the restock that we typically like to do with the budget. So that's why that's at 85, and then you'll see next year it drops back down to about 45,000. That's a standard restock for all the valves, you know, different pipes. Well house roof replacements at $28,000. We have some in there now. Well 3 has been completed, so this is for 4, 5, 6, and 7 to get those done. That price is pretty solid, so we feel confident with that number. Going down, you'll see there's actually two Toby Home generators, so one for the well houses to hook into, and then another one for the booster station. We thought the question might come up, why do we need 2? Can we just utilize the same? Obviously, if we have a massive power outage, you need two separate ones, so we can't be down, so it's just to cover us.
We have nothing right now.
No. Yeah, small
ones,
portable ones.
Small generators. And also, too, they can use these for the sanitary pumps, too.
Yeah, we'd be able to use this for more than just those, yeah. The wet tap machine, we touched on briefly, and then the last item is the new field sample stations. So this would be for 3 new sample stations throughout town, and we would be able to, our water department would be able to do all of their samples from those spots. So all the different types, the bacterial and PFAS, everything from one spot. Does anyone have any questions?
If we start to do I&I, what's that money going to come
Yeah,
from?
that was in the other budget.
I think,
Info and
I
infiltration.
think we should start that.
Yeah, we definitely, I think we wanted to get a little more detail on the I&I, but yeah, we do want to include that.
Yep, that's very important. That'll keep our costs down a little bit.
And I know the sewer authority mentioned they would be working with us on
Yep,
that too.
absolutely.
Yep. All right, that's it.
Anybody have any questions or any comments? No? Okay.
All right, great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So capital should be pretty solid. Next meetings, March, we'll focus on operating then. Thank you.
Okay, are we meeting 6:30 again? 7:30, okay. We'll go back on unfinished business. Anybody from the council have any unfinished business? Nope, okay. New business from the council, anybody?
I do.
Sir, unfinished or new, we have to know.
Oh, no, you know what, it is new. You got it.
Okay,
Anybody have unfinished business?
none.
Okay.
He's in new.
New business.
Yes, new.
Mr. Mayor. Met with the Environmental Committee last Thursday. They presented some items. Did send it out to Steve. Steve and I discussed some of the items. I think one of the items that actually incurs a cost is T-shirts for the membership. We've actually gotten more members on board, and they're taking a very good active role. We have a member from the high school who is planning on doing weekly or monthly cleanups over by Giant Market. We did tell her that we need to have disclosures from family members that are minors so that they could do the work. And Steve said we'll be working on that form, and then we'll move forward with that. They did they would like to present to the council the presentation on the flower boxes that they had put some work into. They actually put together a design and what potential cost. We would probably look at doing it and trying to secure grant money to do it over by Hopper Ave on the north side of the bridge. So it would have southern exposure, so the flowers can grow and they get changed seasonally, working with the beautification team as well as the green team. The other item that they brought up, and we brought it up at the traffic study, was there seems to be a high incident rate of deer crossings. To potentially put up signs as part of the traffic study would be a nominal cost. The police department, they're well aware of where the pinch points are, but then we also said it might be something as simple as sending out a note and seeing if the residents can also tell us where they see there's issues. And I think the last item was over by Route 17. The state was nice enough to plant, but it didn't do what I would call a stand-up job.
They did the best they could.
Yeah, but I mean, the DPW maintains it, and even they said that they can't believe how they just basically haphazardly put it in. We had a gentleman in
Well, that
town
wasn't
that
supposed to be
offered to mention what type of flowers would be good for that area. Basically, things that are drought tolerant, no maintenance, but look good. They also suggested if you look at the one up in Allendale, which those seem to be very robust and they're well maintained. So again, the state, I don't think has any problem with it because we're doing all the work. And the borough would probably have to incur some costs with those plantings. I think it would be a nominal cost because they would take what's there that's working and just move them around and replant and put it in a little bit more organized structure.
You're talking about the area on Route 17?
Route 17.
Yeah.
Yep.
With that, when that was put in, everything that's there was not supposed to be there. That wasn't the plan. They put their own stuff. So what we'll do is give us a list of what you're thinking about putting in there, and we'll reach out to them.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. And also reach out to Tom, who's the new guy, and find out, because Kelly needs to know, I think, the date when you want to do a cleanup.
That
Townwide
was the
cleanup.
last item. For Earth Day, the past couple of years, we've actually done presentations, not really well viewed by the residents. The one item that we did do, and they all brought it up as a topic, is when we did do the town cleanup, we probably had over 100 residents come in and support that. Kelly can tell you, we probably got rid of close to 4 dump trucks of garbage just between Borough Park, that path between the residents' homes and the Board of Ed property, and then HCA Park. HCA Park, there was a lot of debris. I shouldn't say HCA Park, it was the park that we own, which now has a pathway through. But there were still some items in there that we couldn't remove because they were just too heavy. So we would ask to also have the gator come so that we can get those bigger items out of there. So I don't know if that would be something securing one of the DPW employees to help when we do that cleanup. But we'll give you a date in April as to when we're going to do that.
Yeah, and just make sure the date is not a date in which another organization is doing something, because we always...
I will check with Tatiana and Kelly before I book the date.
Very
How's
good,
that?
very good.
That's it.
Anybody else on the new business? If not, we will open it up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to comment, please come up and just state your name.
Elise Dudema. Comment on the cleanup committee that you were just talking about, and a date. You know, it would be a great date, would be before the 5K, so everything looks nice and clean and...
Usually it's like almost close to the date that they have the 5K.
Not the same day.
No, I said it's usually close to the date.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll
I
ask
was just thinking it would be nice, you know, like where they walk along, especially.
Yep.
Sometimes they walk along the track area, you know, the railroad track. There's a lot of garbage down there sometimes. So,
Yes.
last week, or last meeting, I think I heard, and I could be wrong, so forgive me if I am, but did you mention cutting back garbage pickups to once a week?
No.
Okay.
That was on Facebook.
I don't know where I heard
But
it.
she mentioned something.
I
But wasn't-
didn't say it as a plan.
Right.
Somebody was asking how you would do that, and I said one of the ways you would cut
Cut,
back would be
yeah.
to go to once a week garbage.
Right.
Okay.
Somebody asked the question.
But it wasn't,
I heard it from somewhere, like, here.
it
It's
wasn't
not
in the plan.
happening.
Okay, good. That's all. I just want to make sure it's not happening.
Said people would go
If
crazy.
we would have done that.
Yes, exactly. That
You
was
would
my
have a full-
thought.
you would have
I went
full room.
crazy. I was like, I got to get here after work tonight. So. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Anyone else?
Stan, did you pay her to say that?
No, I didn't, but I was happy to say that. Stan Kowalski. I just want to make a comment. There's 2 of our chamber members, Chris James as well as Rossler's. They plant down by 17 and also over here at the clock tower. And I've been getting complaints from Bruce that the flowers aren't irrigated. Somebody, and I think I've spoken to you about that too. So I think we need a plan. And I know we have irrigation down here. We have a sprinkler system that needs to be looked at if you want to implement that, because Chris James had told me that especially during the hot summer months, you know, you don't want to lose the flowers. It's nice enough they donate it. They don't really have the manpower to come by once a week to check it. So I think if you want to keep it nice down there and colorful, we need to have some sort of plan weekly. Just something, I don't know if it's DPW. I know when we planted these trees along the way here, they were out here watering them a year or two ago, whatever it was. So, the other question I had, the EV fast stations, are we tracking that? Is anybody using those?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Everyone's using them.
yeah,
I never see a car in there, I'm just.
A lot of out-of-town. We could actually, we have a whole portal where we could see who's plugged in, the new charges, like it gives you a whole range per month, who's using it, unique drivers that are using it. It's getting used extensively.
Yeah, a
and we're
lot of
seeing it.
out-of-state drivers,
Yeah.
we're optimally located right off the highway, so people see it in their vehicle, and they pull over, and it's just a few blocks down.
Does the town get any revenue from that?
Yep, we're making.
Oh, we do? Okay, good. And,
You can pull some data, maybe for the next meeting, we'll try and pull some
Yeah,
data
okay,
for you.
great.
We should put one by the train station.
yeah, May 4th is the 5K, 17th year. The town's been really supportive, and I want to thank you guys, and it's always sparkling clean, so, but keep up the good work. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to go in, I have a motion to adjourn. Motion by somebody, please? Joe, second by Mike. All those in favor? All those